The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly podcast coming to you on June 4th, 2021. Ooh, the weekend's here. Although that's not the weekend today. But, Anyway, this podcast you can find on all podcast catchers, such as Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher Radio. What else am I missing? I think that's it. Anyway, how you guys doing? I'm actually doing this. You can't see it because I'm not doing the video. I'm not doing the video version of the show. Although you can find the show on YouTube, but it will be there's no video me on screen. And to be honest with you, I've been really, at least for the solo shows, I've been staying away from that because, lately when I do the podcast, I tend to like sit, kind of unprofessional in a lot of ways. Like I'll be like right now, I'm holding my child right now. My 4-year-old wanted me to hold him, so I figured, well, if I gotta do 2 plus 1 still. I can hold him while he's going to sleep and do a podcast. Apparently, and if you listen to the show for a while, you know that there have been times where like I will do a show. Sometimes you see on camera, like when I do tape wrestling, for example, with my boys Mike and Joe, like he may pop in a room, in the middle of sleep, and then I have to hold him in the show, and you'll probably see it on camera at times. But he wanted me to hold him, and so I figured, well, I'm ready here in my little office in my closet. Might as well just like hold him. I could probably just pop into a podcast. So I'm doing that, Anyway, so let's start here first. I am officially fully vaccinated. Obviously, 14 days. Should I say? They say you're fully vaccinated after 2 weeks of the second shot. So technically, I'm not fully vaccinated, but I got my second shot a couple days ago. How I handle it? Well, like I said, I was worried about how it would be in terms of because a lot of the common threads I've heard of people I've spoken to, stories I've heard is that the second shot is one knocks in the ass. And to be honest, I got it on Tuesday, a couple days ago, 3 days ago, and then a couple hours after I got the shot, that same evening I felt chills, felt like I was a little fatigued, but it wasn't terrible. Next day, obviously I had soreness in my arm. It's common. Both shots I got had soreness in my arm. The soreness in my arm was kind of a bit bothersome on day 2, where I had issues putting my head up in my arm up, moving it. But they keep saying move your arms around, because when you do that, the flow of the vaccine and whatnot, and the blood flow continues. It goes. It basically encourages the blood flow by when you keep moving it, rubbing in your arm, all that. So I've been doing that, and then by Thursday I was feeling fine. Now today I worked. I got a little bit of a headache a couple hours ago. I still have a little bit of headache now. Not sure if that's because of the vaccine, or that's because of just me not just not feeling well. I don't know. I was considering not doing this podcast today, but I was like, I gotta push to do it. I want to do it. I want to get out of the way. So, but I'm for someone who was kind of on the fence while getting vaccinated, saying I had a lot of questions and defending people who were true, not people who had true intentions of concerns rather about whether they get vaccinated. I am glad I got vaccinated. Honestly, I'm not growing a third arm. I don't have a third eye. I'm not growing fangs, none of that. Nothing weird happened. I had the usual, adjustment, and then that's it. There's no magnet in my arm or whatever. My friends are telling me, to go put a magnet next to your arm and see if you see something goes next to your shoulder. I'm like, oh, stop. It's all propaganda bullshit. Anyway, so, but glad I am vaccinated. Glad I am able to be normal. I've been working without my mask recently also too, because hey, we're working at the normal. We're trying to get normal, and if I'm fully vaccinated, might as well just live life back full as I can. So I know that's in some circles that's kind of a controversial statement, but I don't judge you, you don't judge me. Just that simple. Okay, NBA talk, and mainly I want to talk about one thing in the NBA playoffs, because as it's recording, we're going to have there's only one series left in the first round, and that's the Clippers and the Mavs. Game six actually starts in about 20 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever. But of course, the big highlight of the first round is the defending NBA champions, Los Angeles Lakers, were bounced in 6 games, the Phoenix Suns, last night. And it's really not too shocking if you look at the narrative, if you look at the obvious. And this is what I've said all season long. If Anthony Davis is healthy and holds up, the Lakers win the title. Or at the very least, the Eastern Conference, at the very least. If Anthony Davis is not healthy, they ain't going anywhere, and they could get bounced. Depending on their seeding, it could bounce early. And Anthony Davis obviously didn't hold up. Anthony Davis missed Game 5. He came back for, 2 minutes Game 6, got hurt again, didn't return. The Lakers gone. And they're going to have a lot of issues going forward, because Anthony Davis and him being his health is not something that's random. It's a thing. He's 8 years in the league now? 9 years in the league? He does not stay healthy. This is the narrative of Anthony Davis. And then you add the additional thing of LeBron James, who's now 36 years old. By next season, he'll be 37 years old. Okay? 18 years in the league. At some point, he cannot carry a team like this day to day like he used to. And nor should he be expected to at his age. And I think that's the part we are kind of sort of not appreciating with this. Look, there's so many narratives of LeBron James these days. He's become 18 years in the league now, such a polarizing topic. And a lot of it, too, is disingenuous, in my opinion. Now, there's a lot of things about LeBron James you can like, obviously. He's a very charitable person. In my opinion, he seems well-intentioned. In my opinion, anyway. But there are things about him, too, that you can say that kind of bothers him. He complains much on the court. He whines with officials. Some of his not necessarily his political stances, but the way he operates in responding to those stances can be a bit troublesome at times. Even when I do agree with him, for the record. And I've been saying that on the record for quite a while now. I think the problem, and of course, this is also coming to the heels of LeBron James. This is his first time losing the first round of playoffs in his entire career, and people making a big deal about that. Like, he ain't Jordan because he did that. Yeah, you're literally celebrating someone losing in the first round for the first time after 18 mumbling years in the league, and that's supposed to be an insult. Like, really, step back from your narrative on LeBron James, whether you love him or hate him. If that's supposed to be an insult, then I don't know what you're doing. You're doing it wrong. Like, the fact he went 18 years without losing the first round is impressive. Michael Jordan lost in the first round out the gate for the first 3-4 years of his career. Like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, let's not make shit up to feel good. Like, look, if you don't like LeBron James, I get it. I totally get it. And there are things about LeBron James I can argue are legitimate that you don't like, that you can't like about him, and I would actually agree with you on that. But to make a big deal about losing the first round at age 36, and no player of his ilk has ever been considered a top player in his league or association at this late in his career. Michael Jordan what was Michael Jordan doing in year 18? Oh yeah, third retirement and final one. Or close to that, I think. I remember. 37 years old, what was he doing? Okay, so 37 years old, Michael Jordan's on 63, so no, Michael Jordan played to 40. So Michael Jordan was in Washington, and Michael Jordan was nowhere as good as LeBron James at 37 years old. Nowhere close. So stop. Okay? Kobe Bryant, as great as he was, at 37 years old, nowhere close. Kobe Bryant was on the way out of the league. So, again, what are we doing? In fact, didn't Kobe retire at 36? I think. 36 was retired, I believe. My point is, LeBron James, up to this year, was still considered the best player in basketball. And we're knocking this guy still? Like, we should be really appreciating. I want to say you have to praise him, but at least appreciate what this guy has done 18 years in. Like, there's no way. Like, even as good as Tom Brady is this year, has been in the last couple of years, as he's now crossed 40, he's now 43 years old. Tom Brady's not the best player in the sport. He's not even the best player in his position in the league and hasn't been for quite a while. He's still really good, but he has to have the right people, the right pieces around him to succeed. That is the case. This is the truth. So to sit there and make fun of LeBron James, the fact that he lost his first series in the first time in the first round in his career, and it only took 18 years to do that, and you think that's an insult? Mind you, he also lost his best player, his wingman, and also he's not even healthy to begin with, and you're supposed to look at it as an insult? Like, stop. You're doing it wrong, man. Like, you look silly in the argument now because you're showing your own bias. You know what I'm saying? So, and look, the way LeBron James handled himself in Game 5 and Game 6, disgusting. I didn't like it. And he's just criticism for that. But criticism for the right things. Don't make it more than it has to be. You know, for all the people who, you know, Jordan's a GOAT. And by the way, I'm on that side too, defense, that Jordan's a GOAT. But you act like number 2 is like a bad thing. Like, how many NBA players we've had go through this league in, what was it, 70 years now in this league, 75 years in this league, something like that? Okay. How many great players do you have through this league? And I tell you LeBron James top 3 all time, and that's supposed to be an insult? Like, stop. You're doing it wrong, guys. Like, stop. But that being said, the Lakers are kind of in trouble now because the AD thing, you know, and his health. I don't know their cap situation. I'll probably have some NBA analysts come on this podcast in the coming weeks to discuss that and discuss what they can and can't do. There isn't really much. I mean, there's some depreciated assets out there. There's some possible disgruntled stars out there that they could probably poach. You know, a Damian Lillard or a Bradley Beal, maybe. I don't know. But I will say this much though, and this is definitely the case. I think last night we can now say for the first time, really with confidence, that LeBron James is no longer the best player in the league. Because part of the reason why I say that now is because to have that title, you have to be able to do this on moment's notice. You have to be able to carry a team night to night. And LeBron James has been able to do that for the last 13, 14, dare I say 15 years. And for the first time, he couldn't do it. And he hasn't been able to do it. He wasn't really that good in this series either, for the record, even when AD was there. So, yeah, we're finally starting to see LeBron James come to earth a little bit. Now, is LeBron James top 5? I can still say top 5. He's definitely top 10. I was actually having an argument with our own Zach Degenerate, who has been on this podcast a long time. We have to bring him on soon. And he was saying that he's no longer top 5. And I'm like, well, let's not get emotional about these things. Let's really sit down and find out what 5 players are better than him right now in this league you'll take right now for 1 year. I still have a hard time saying he's not top 5 in the league. I still have a hard time saying that. Top 10, he's definitely top 10. Top 5, I still think he's top 5. And I guess those are debates we'll have in the weeks to come, weeks to come, not years, weeks, you know. But let's stop. Let's stop with the noise. Let's stop with the stupid narratives. You know, you can both things can be right here. You know what I'm saying? Both things right. LeBron James is a great player, all-time great, top 2, 3 player all time, and you don't like his personality, and that's fine. It's okay. Michael Jordan, to me, in my opinion, one of the biggest douchebags in the history of the world. Complete asshole, complete prick. Michael Jordan, also greatest basketball player ever. Greatest NBA player ever. So, both can be right. And do it right. That's all. Anyway. Okay, so this title of the podcast is called 25 Years of Load. The reason why it's called that is today, and I just realized this morning as I was going on Twitter. Today is the 25-year anniversary of the release of Metallica's Load album. Now, everybody in this podcast knows I'm a diehard Metallica fan, obviously. This album, obviously, is one of the most controversial albums when it comes to this band and this in rock and roll history in general, because of what this band was for the first 15 years of existence. And then, they released 5 albums before that. And then what they came up with this and their style and all that. So there's a lot of backstory to this for me also personally, because this is the year I also became a fan of the band, 1996. I became a Metallica fan in 1996. Now, I didn't become a fan because of Load, because I became a fan of Metallica before Load was even released. So, like I said, Load was released June 4th, 1996. I became a fan of Metallica around February, March of 96. And I've told a story in the past, maybe one time, a long time ago. The song that got me to Metallica was the Four Horsemen. The Four Horsemen is actually the second track off their debut album of Kill 'Em All. Obviously, Kill 'Em All, very thrashy, much different sound than Load, of course, much heavier. And, they, for years leading up to Load, had already teased signs of becoming more, not just mainstream, but also having the ability to be different, not just have a one-track sound, a thrashy sound. Ride Lightning had Fade to Black. Master Puppets had Sanitarium. Justice for All was heavy all the way throughout. And then, of course, the first major change for Metallica, and, of course, it ended up being the biggest, to this day, their most biggest commercial success, is the Black Album, 1991 Black Album. And that album took them to the stratosphere, being the biggest band in the world. Not just metal band, but band in general. They were everywhere. And Enter Sandman's on that record, obviously. So, and even someone at 11 years old when I came out, and I wasn't a Metallica fan back then, I knew who they were at that point. You go to school, you still have kids wearing T-shirts and stuff, so you definitely knew who Metallica was. And I knew, I obviously heard Enter Sandman and a couple of the big songs. But it's funny, because 96, I become a fan, and the Metallica I know is what I learned the first 5 albums. Because even when they went mainstream, they still see the black, and that's the thing with the Metallica and the Black Album. So even when they went mainstream on that album, they still kept the sound. They still had the metal roots were still on that record. Yeah, it sounded more straightforward, and Hetfield definitely sounded. They put more emphasis on James Hetfield's vocals to sing more. And that's obviously Bob Rock's influence. Okay, that's obviously the case, but you can still call the Black Album a metal record, honestly. At the very least, a hard rock record, but definitely a metal. I was still call it a metal album, honestly. There's still an attitude. Or in all black. The cover of the album was just an all black sheet with the snake in the corner. That's all it was. It was still heavy, And then Load comes out, and this is where it's confused for me, because, again, my exposure to Metallica when I became a fan in 96 was the first 5 records. So I'm expecting long hair, something like the Black Album, heavy, maybe straightforward, but still heavy. And then I see Metallica, release the Until It Sleeps video in April, May of 96. And they all have short hair. All 4 guys. James, Lars, Kirk, and Jason. All have short hair. Then I see the Low album comes out. I get the album the week it comes out at a Circuit City in Miami. Rest in peace, Circuit City. And I see, I look at the booklets, and this is back when the CDs were still really big, and, they had the big booklets, the 15, 16 page booklet. And here's these guys. And by the way, awesome pictures, artistically speaking. But you have these guys with short hair, Lars and James. Well, actually, all of them at some point or another wearing makeup to some degree. What was it? Smoking Cuban cigars, and it was definitely a different. It was shocked for me. I was just shocked to people who followed the band for years, but for me, it was weird, because it's like, okay, so the Metallica I know that I'm getting into is long haired and attitude and just dressed down, all black and sneakers and fucking pounding metal. And then I see the Metallica I'm getting here in 1996. So the Low comes out, and this is a more clean cut, hard rock, almost alternative. There's a country song on the record, but it still had attitude. But it was shocking for me at the time, but I love the songs still. I still like the songs. Like, for a lot of people, it's like, well, how can you like this album? it's not the old Metallica, but yet it still grabbed me. And I think also musically speaking too, I'm a lot more diverse when it comes to that. Like my exposure to rock music, especially, the bands I got into before Metallica in the mid '90s, I got into Green Day first, then I got into Rage Against the Machine before Metallica. In fact, to be honest with you, and this shouldn't surprise anybody here when you think, but you know who I am, the artist that really exposed me to rock music to begin with was Michael Jackson. Because he had Slash on his records. He had Slash on like three of his last three albums. He's had Stevie Stevens, he had Eddie Van Halen. He's always dabbled in with rock and roll too, rock and roll figures too as well on his records, inclusive. So Michael gets the credit for more than anything else for exposing me to rock music to begin with. So it goes from Michael to Green Day. And one name for Green Day, I was into like a little bit alternative in the early 90s, Spin Doctors and the Cranberries and things of that nature, Blind Melon. And then I get a little bit heavier and heavier and heavier, go to Green Day when Dookie comes out. Then I listen to the self-titled Rage Against the Machine record. And then Metallica. And once I got to Metallica, it was all over. But Load for me, Load is my second favorite Metallica album. And I know it shocks a lot of people when I say that, especially diehards, because you think they think even if I listen to a mainstream Metallica record, I probably get into like maybe the Black Album first before that, or maybe Reload or something. No, I think Load is so underrated. I honestly think Load ages well as the years goes on. 25 years later, it ages well. They're really good songs in there. Like there's some songs that are kind of filler. Like the song like Cure, for example, is a filler song. Waste My Hate is kind of a filler song, so I like it, but it's kind of a filler song, But the album still has if you look past the haircuts and the sound change a little bit, there's still a lot of attitude in that record, and some of the most underrated Metallica songs in the history of their entire catalog are on that record. Bleeding Me is a fantastic song. The vocals of James, and look, I never viewed James Hetfield as a phenomenal vocalist. I think he's unique in what he does, and it fits Metallica. But I never viewed him as a top tier, top notch vocalist. But the vocals on this record, like obviously the Black Album, you saw that like there was definitely a focus on his vocals, and they did a good job with that one. I think even more so in the Black Album, this record put even more focus on James Hetfield, and it allowed James Hetfield to actually be even more open with the things he wanted to do. Again, James Hetfield has loves country music. He did a country song, Mama Said. A couple of songs in there where you have some of the blues influences there too in there. Some of the guitar work on this record is amazing too. Again, it gets shit on because it's Metallica sold out and they cut their hair and all this and all that. I don't see it that way, man. I see it as a band, 6th album, 15 years in the game. Let's grow. Let's try new things. And that's the thing with Metallica I always respected, is that they have no qualms in trying new things. They did it with Saint Anger too. And the thing is, people want heavy Metallica. Saint Anger is arguably one of the most heaviest records they've ever done. But the production is just fucking shitty. That's a big difference. So pick what you want, fans. You want heavy Metallica? You got heavy Metallica. But you like Saint Anger because of the sound. Which I agree, the sound, the drums sound like fucking Folgers cans. But yeah, I love it. I love Load. I was into it today. Ain't my bitch. Fucking out the gate. Muscle. 2x4 is my favorites on the record. My favorite song on the record is actually The House that Jack Built, Jack 3. I love the vibe, and I love the snarly Hetfield vocals. I think that's one reason why I love this record is that the vocals on this album, James, this is the first record. People say the Black Album, but I think this album is where James took a lot of chances. Like really taking his voice and really putting a signature, the wow and the yeah and all that. Yes, you got that in the Black Album, but I think you got that on fucking steroids on Load. And that's why I love Load so much too, because it really got the Hetfield character vocally was really, really formed or released, we want to call it, on Load. The record sold really well. I mean, it was obviously, disappointing to a lot of fans, but I really believe this album's aged well. I really believe that. You know, a lot of good songs on there. You know, so I don't know. It's, you know, there was different strokes, different folks, obviously, but you know, it's one of my favorites. It's like I said, my second favorite album of the band, and that's quite often. Always have, always will. So, anyway, last thing before I let you go. I've been feasting on like a bunch of wrestling documentaries, and I'll probably review a couple others that I watch, but I want to focus on two, especially on the same character. So A&E's been doing these biographies. It's supposed to do 8. They did one on Ultimate Warrior, and as well as Dark Side of the Ring was done on the 3rd season, and they also did Ultimate Warrior documentary. So I've been kind of like in this little Ultimate Warrior rabbit hole the last week or so. Now, obviously, you guys know I love wrestling. Never really been a big Ultimate Warrior guy. Actually, never liked him. Certainly hated me more after the comments he made about gays and minorities, you know, back in the mid-2000s, you know, doing his speaking tour. But I was still fascinated to see if these documentaries will actually delve into those things, the whys. Because even though people who do bad things, you want to know what drew them to do the things they did. And obviously, Ultimate Warrior's legacy, you know, at least, you know, with you know, people, the shooting reviews you see on YouTube, obviously, and people would discuss the Ultimate Warrior. He is not well liked. He's not well liked. Not many wrestlers came on this documentary to even talk about him, really, honestly, any of these documentaries. But the two documentaries had two different perspectives. I don't say different perspective, actually, but it came from two different angles. So the A&E documentary I watched first, it's a little more sanitized because it does delve into the warts and obviously the things he did with the speaking tour and all that, and you know, him being really disliked and holding up Vince and at SummerSlam '91, all that. But they also do a good job of balancing as well to the fact that he was, even though he had a lot of issues and he was not he's an enigma and a strange guy and someone that you really just couldn't get along with, he also was a great family man. And he had his daughters, who I think now over 18, I believe now, and his wife, Dana, his second wife, should I say, which I can get to in a second, on the documentary as well, too, praising him for being a great father. And, you know, I'm not a Warrior guy. Even after this, I still don't like the things he said, obviously, and all that. But I think I come away with a little more clarity as to why he went where he did. Like, it goes into his fact that his father left the home at a young age, and he felt like, you know, not having that figure, obviously, it probably fucked with his head, obviously, you know. But yeah, they came with a more sanitized version. Although I will say they did. I guess sanitized isn't a word I should use because it was balanced. But because they go into the details of that stuff. But it also balanced it with the family stuff, and it kind of put it like a happy ending to it too, because, you know, obviously he gets inducted to Hall of Fame, you know, by WWE in 2014. He goes on Raw, has that big speech, and then he dies the next day. So it gave him I guess a little bit of a bold, kind of like a happy ending, if you will. The Dark Side of the Ring version of this, Becoming Warrior, a little more, you know, people call it smut. I disagree, because some of the things that have been said, that was said on the documentary, on Dark Side of the Ring especially too, and both documentaries, honestly, are consistent with what we've heard for years from other people. The only shocking thing, really, honestly, and I don't know if I believe it, because I've heard people say that's not really true, was, okay, so I mentioned the time where Warrior held up Vince at SummerSlam '91 for a new contract. Basically, Warrior wanted everything Hulk Hogan had. He wanted the same pay, he wanted the same deals, wanted the same percentage of licensing, all that, you name it. And supposedly, there was, according to Jake Snake Roberts, he was supposed to go into the feud with Warrior that year, which, you know, a title feud. I wasn't sure if Jake was supposed to get the belt or not, but he was supposed to get a feud with Warrior that year. And because of Warrior getting fired after SummerSlam '91, literally the night of SummerSlam '91, because of Vince being held up, you know, Jake was able to get the feud he wanted, you know, to make money. Because forget the fact that you get the belt or not. If you're feuding a champion, you're making a lot of money. That's thousands of dollars. And Jake said that Warrior fucked him as a result of that, and he held that that grudge up until the night of the Hall of Fame speech 2014, and Jake was saying that Jake was embellishing the fact that he was up until that night he was about to pop Warrior in the face for attack him for fucking up, and then I guess Warrior came up and approached him and apologized. Sounds a little unbelievable. It sounds a little embellished. I don't know. I want to believe him, but it sounds kind of, I don't know. It sounds kind of out there, in my opinion. But the perspective also on the Dark Side of the Ring version 2 also was from his first wife. And when I heard that, it was supposed to be on the episode, my mind was like, oh god, this might be really smut and whatnot. I'll be honest with you. She actually humanized him a lot. Probably more than his current wife was widow, honestly. But the amazing thing, like I said, is his ex-wife didn't trash him really. I mean, those moments obviously she should be honest about the relationship. When they were together from 1982 to like 91 and whatnot. But she didn't trash him really. From what she was saying, that even when they broke it off and after the divorce and whatnot, they were still kind of cool at the end. So it was nice to hear that perspective, and I think actually she did a really, really good job. I mean, if she's telling the truth, of course, too, because these documentaries also can be a little bit embellished. I know Dark Side of the Ring, especially too, a lot more focused on the negative and the bad parts of the business. So you want to take things with a grain of salt to some degree. But I didn't think she trashed him. I thought she did actually a decent job of keeping him, making him look human. I assumed that she was going to trash him because you hear ex-wife and you're like, oh, well, great. She's going to come in this talk shit about the guy that she divorced 30 years ago and he's a piece of shit and all that. And no, she actually didn't do that. She actually humanized him a lot. And that was kind of refreshing, to be honest with you. The Jake Snake stuff, I'm not even sure if that's even true or not. But they sure as hell threw it in the documentary, made it a big angle. So, but all in all, I've kind of actually, I don't say respect, but I enjoyed the documentaries. Obviously, I've always had I was never a Warrior guy, even before this stuff. I was never a Warrior guy. I was always a Hogan guy, But at least I got, in my mind, a little bit of closure as to maybe why the Warrior went this route in the 2000s, why he had these issues, why the ego, and why did he see himself as this person, and why he felt the way he felt to say the things he said, and about gays and minorities and whatnot. I personally am a forgiving person, so I like to see, okay, people can change. People can change, and when I forgive him, of course I forgive him. That's just who I am as a person. Ultimately, he has to answer to God about that. But one side note too about Ultimate Warrior also. So around this time when that thing happened, when the stuff happened with the speeches and all that he was giving, WWE and him at that point were not on speaking terms, obviously, at the time. And Vince and company had actually put out a DVD called The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, which is basically a shoot DVD. But anyone who was associated with the Warrior during this time in WWE, to just say what the fuck they wanted, to shoot on anything, and Bobby Heenan and Hulk Hogan, and you name it. Everybody had a piece. Ric Flair, all that, and it was definitely a hit job. But it came off as a hit job, but yet again, some of the things they were saying were kind of actually consistent with what we've heard for years, even before the DVD came out. So, wasn't really a hit job. Wasn't them really telling the truth. And of course, Vince and Warrior patched things up, and that DVD hasn't been in circulation since. And I used to own that DVD, and then I lost it in one of my moves, probably in late 2000s. And for years I was trying to find it on the internet, and I couldn't find it on YouTube, couldn't find it anywhere. Lo and behold, in a dark corner of the internet 2 days ago, I actually found the entire episode, the entire documentary on Self-Destruction Ultimate Warrior, and I luckily was able to download it on my phone and put it up on my computer. So finally found it. So but I said, Warrior's a complicated guy. He really is. But check out those DVDs to get a chance. Vice TV for the Dark Side of the Rings version, Becoming a Warrior, and then of course the A&E biography on the Ultimate Warrior. They're doing a good job. They did. I watched. I'm actually caught up on all the A&E ones except for Roddy Piper. I watched Booker T a couple days ago, which I will review in the next episode of this podcast. Shawn Michaels, of course. We saw Steve Austin. I reviewed him on this podcast earlier, a couple weeks ago, rather. So, yeah, I see every single one except for that one. So, there's that. I guess that's it for now. 35 minutes is good enough. So, again, I'm on Twitter at EJChristian7, Earnest Speaking Media at earnestspeaking.net. We will talk soon, I guess, as I put this kid back to sleep because my arm is now starting to get sore. So, we'll talk to you guys later. Later.